Attorney Markus has been practicing exclusively bankruptcy law in California since 1991 and is one of a small group of bankruptcy attorneys who are certified specialists by the State Bar of California Board of Legal Specialization. He represents individuals and businesses, both debtors and creditors, in all bankruptcy chapters. Let's meet Markus. Hello, Mark.
Hello.
And thanks for coming in.
My pleasure.
Please sit down.
Thank you.
So tell me, Mark, how did you decide on bankruptcy law for your practice?
Well, actually, I just got hired by a firm out of law school that happened to practice bankruptcy law, and I had never taken a bankruptcy course prior to that, but I found it very interesting and appealing. It covers a lot of different areas of law at the same time. Everything kind of wound into one, and it keeps you interested at all times. And it's been a fascinating journey for me in bankruptcy law, and I love helping people, and it's just been very rewarding.
Well, what are some of the reasons people seek to file for bankruptcy?
There's a number of different reasons. The main one, obviously, trying to get relief from debts. People come in with all kinds of different types of debts, whether it be credit card debt or medical debt, or somebody sues them for something, perhaps a personal injury or something like that. And it's a way to get relief from debts, but there's a lot of other things you can do with bankruptcy as well, particularly with respect to real estate. You can sometimes eliminate liens. You can catch up on mortgage payments if you're in the middle of a foreclosure process. There's just a wide variety of things that bankruptcy can accomplish.
Well, can people keep their assets and property when they file bankruptcy, or are they just starting over, they lose everything?
It depends on which chapter they're filing. Chapter 7 case will allow you to keep property as long as you have enough exemptions under state law to cover those the values that you have in those assets. If you have a good attorney, you're not going to file a Chapter 7 case if you're going to lose any assets. The attorney will pretty much know that going into it. Although sometimes you intentionally want to give up assets, depends. But in other chapters, you don't lose any assets at all. You just have to pay a certain amount to your creditors over a period of time, like in a Chapter 13 or a Chapter 11 case.
Well, I don't know if I should ask this, but I am interested in knowing what a case might be where it's in a client's best interest to lose an asset.
Well, sometimes they just can't afford it anymore. I mean,
Okay.
if, for example, if you have a house that have a mortgage payment that you simply can't afford to make anymore, but there is equity in the property. And sometimes there's enough equity in the property so that even after your creditors get paid, you might even get some money back. Or you may be entitled to your homestead exemption in the property as well. So a lot of times it's beneficial to have the bankruptcy trustee liquidate your assets and pay your creditors, and you get something back, and you get rid of the other unsecured debts that you might have, such as credit cards and whatever. It sometimes works out better that way rather than you having to sell the property yourself. It's fact specific. It's not often the case that one would do a Chapter 7 if they had assets that they could not otherwise protect.
Well, good, though. I'm glad it came up because that is an aspect. I mean, it's a complicated business, bankruptcy, and that's why, obviously, people hire people like you.
It is indeed, yes.
Well, would you say that bankruptcy is an underutilized resource?
I think it is. I think a lot of people shy away from bankruptcy. They think there's something wrong about doing it, that they feel guilty doing it, and there's so much positive things that can come from filing a bankruptcy case, and I think people, number one, aren't aware of what bankruptcy can do, and number two, they're just feel guilty about doing it.
And it's really not something to feel guilty about, is it? I am sure these people, when they took on their debts, they purchased those assets, they did it absolutely on good faith. They fully intended to repay those debts, but sometimes things happen in life through no fault of their own, where they are just left with no choice.
Absolutely, and it's important to remember that these are laws that are, were designed to help them. And why wouldn't you take advantage of a law that's there to protect you? A lot of people don't, and it's not. It's sad to me. The people come to me, a lot of times they come to me way too late. But there's a lot that can be done in bankruptcy, so take advantage of the laws that are there for you. And you mentioned that the vast majority of people come to bankruptcy in good faith. Obviously they intended to pay their creditors,
and they're not laughing on their way to see you. They've had this burden on their shoulders that really takes over their lives every waking moment. They're worried about these debts. I'm sure it provides some relief to them just even talking to you and getting the process started, that there's some relief, that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and that life is going to continue at some point soon.
When they realize what can be accomplished for them, the vast majority of my clients kick themselves in the head, proverbially, that they didn't come sooner.
Yeah.
It's a huge relief, and it's also something that doesn't have the consequences that they all imagine, that it's going to have. In fact, by the time you get to the point where you're that far behind in debt, there's very little in the way of consequences of filing bankruptcy. There's usually only positive points, and it's usually superior to a lot of non-bankruptcy alternatives like debt consolidation or other similar options that they have.
Now, is bankruptcy a do-it-yourself project, or should you, as a bankruptcy attorney, always be involved?
Well, the system is set up so that you are allowed to file without an attorney. I can never recommend it. The bankruptcy laws are extremely complex. I mean, they're so complex that, even non-bankruptcy attorneys have huge difficulty practicing in bankruptcy law. That having been said, you can file a bankruptcy by yourself, and sometimes you can get lucky and nothing will go wrong. But if something does go wrong, it's very difficult to fix, and there's just thousands of mind traps that you can fall into in a bankruptcy case. And the laws changed back in 2005, and they made things a lot more complicated than they already were. And there's just so many different things that can go wrong that I could never, even though it's in my best interest to have people come to me, there's just no way that I can in good faith recommend that people try to do it themselves, because I get so many inquiries every week from people that did try to do it themselves, or they went with a paralegal or a non-bankruptcy petition preparer or something like that, and their case just got hopelessly
then they're in worse shape. They not only don't relieve all that stress and those burdens, they've got a whole new set of stress and burdens. So I think you're exactly right.
Absolutely.
Well, Markus, you're doing practicing a crucial area of law, and as I said, I really do. I've just spoken with so many people through the years that just have the sense of hopelessness over these financial things that you help them avoid and get out of that hopelessness, and again, back to living their lives. So I know you're doing very valuable work.
Well, the important thing I'd want to leave everybody with is that, there's usually no charge for an initial consultation with a bankruptcy attorney. I mean, some charge a nominal amount, but regardless of whether they charge or not, there's no obligation to filing a bankruptcy case if you go to a bankruptcy attorney, to find out what your options are. And I've always said that it's important to find out what your options are, learn what the information is before you make a decision. So many people go through this financial process without ever even learning what their options are in bankruptcy. So how could they possibly make an intelligent decision on what it is they're going to do? Don't be afraid to learn what your options are.
That's a good point, and I'm sure you do make it. You figured out some way to make it so that the people that they're not flush with cash. I mean, they're not. They're not rolling in dough. That's why they're having to come to you. I'm sure many people are asking, well, how in the world am I going to afford a bankruptcy attorney? I don't even have the money to make my car payment or whatever. But I'm sure you somehow have it worked out.
Well, first of all, a lot of my clients have way more money than I do, but a lot of them don't, and it's having the money to pay for a bankruptcy is sort of a different concept than not being able to afford to pay your debts.
Yeah.
And there's usually ways of working it out. Of course, a lot of this has to do with waiting too long. If you wait until, for example, if you have a fixed budget where you're living paycheck to paycheck, and you wait until a creditor gets a judgment against you, and then they're starting to garnish your wages so that you don't even have the ability to get any money from your paycheck anymore to pay for attorney's fees, then you're going to be in trouble.
Right.
But these are the kind of things where if you act on this early, when you first start having financial problems, you learn what your options are, you can start to plan for it. If you wait till the last minute, yeah, it's going to be more difficult to come up with money for something like that, and you're going to have to borrow from family or friends or do something else, or sometimes you just can't afford it. And I completely understand that, and that's why there are a lot of people who file bankruptcy by themselves.
Well, Markus, thank you very much for coming in, and thank you for the
My
work
pleasure.
you do.
Thank you.
And your contact information is up on the screen, and I, of course, encourage anyone who could possibly use your services to get in touch with you. Thank you very much, Mark.
You're welcome. Very, very nice meeting.